I remember last year the excitement that we had around FedNow and Ripple payments and how the XRP ledger could be used to facilitate FedNow. And fast forward, we realized that obviously the FedNow system is a different system, completely separate from the XRP ledger. Fine, they might, institute some of the technology or implement some of the technology that's been sort of learned or taken or forked or copied from the XRP ledger project to inform how things work. And then we realized that, well, the ISO 222 is what's governing all of this stuff and how things are all going to plug together. But interestingly enough, the FedNow system requires banks and institutions that have very, very strict qualification parameters to work with FedNow. And there are very few of these licensed banks and institutions based on the criteria that's set out by FedNow. Unfortunately, Ripple doesn't qualify for licensing because Ripple is not a depository institution, right? So effectively, RippleNet right now or up till now hasn't basically qualified based on the criteria set out by the Federal Reserve to use FedNow or to plug to FedNow or to settle via FedNow. There is a loophole that Ripple has found that now connects Ripple payments or Ripple network, whatever you want to call it, to FedNow, and now settlements can flow across the board. So they found a bridge between the two. And this is kind of a quiet, game-changing thing that happened in the background again while we're all distracted by the noise. We're looking at the price of XRP and what's happening elsewhere. We're all worried about 100 men versus one gorilla fight, who's going to win. All of this stuff is happening in the background, and a lot of the whales that keep an eye on this stuff, they're the ones that are quietly accumulating XRP because again they know that the stars are about to align in a ridiculous way and we're going to get face melting candles. But let's read this quickly. Ripple taps FedNow access via Finastra, a bold move around Fed restrictions. Ripple has unlocked a new pathway into the US central banking system by leveraging the partnership with a core banking provider, Finastra. This move allows Ripple to route real-time payments through the FedNow service despite being ineligible for a Federal Reserve Master account. And like I said in my intro, the Federal Reserve Master account is reserved for specific organizations that qualify. I have a link to what the qualification requirements are, which I'm going to leave in the description if you're interested. I might actually have a quick look at it now during the video. According to crypto researcher, again, this SMQKE, I have no idea how to pronounce that. I suppose that's supposed to sound like smoke. Ripple's collaboration with Finastra enables it to connect with the FedNow network. Finastra already works with the FedNow service to bridge the link between banking platforms and the Federal Reserve Network. Licensing from a depository institution is required for a master account. So Ripple does not have a master account as such, cannot connect directly. It's not a direct provider, right? So Ripple and similar companies are not allowed. As a result, Ripple can gain entry to central bank platforms through Finastra without violating the rules. So it's a kind of like a workaround that is absolutely brilliant. They get to connect without violating any rules. And who knows, down the line in the future, after Ripple has worked with Finastra for a while, perhaps provided settlement for the FedNow network for ages. Now they realize that this is a secure system. Who knows, Ripple might eventually obtain licensing, right? Finastra total messaging is very important in configuring this system. It allows Ripple to interact with networks such as MasterCard and Thunes. With this infrastructure, Ripple's payment messages pass through legal and compliant networks and position the company in the federal payment system. FedNow Liquidity tool powers Ripple's indirect payment access. The Federal Reserve Liquidity Management Tool, LMT, is central to how Ripple's transactions are processed. The tool allows authorized banks to shift funds between MasterCard accounts and joint accounts that support services like FedNow. Through this mechanism, Ripple's payments are settled by banks that hold master accounts. Ripple and its services operate with legally designated banks, giving banks privileged access to Federal Reserve guidelines. The structure is also able to work with the ISO 222 standards. The Ripple platform can support the messaging procedure, which is necessary for running without complications on the FedNow network. Consequently, Ripple can match its blockchain technology to how banks currently work. Payments technology is set to improve greatly due to Ripple, Finastra, and FedNow working together. Without a master account in the US, Ripple has become involved in regulated real-time domestic settlement. Using Finastra as a bridge to FedNow, Ripple bypasses the direct access barrier while staying within regulatory boundaries. This strategy offers a compliant route for fintechs to enter the central bank payment space. So, like this article says, other fintechs are probably going to be looking at doing this sort of thing. Ripple sets a precedent. Again, first mover advantage. There's going to be a lot of FedNow liquidity passing through the XRP ledger. So I'm here for that. In a video I made a couple of months ago or so, in one of my walking around videos, I mentioned how Ripple's intention actually, I don't think is to replace Swift. I think it's more of collaboration rather than direct competition that replaces the incumbents. I think that Ripple, and Brad Garlinghouse has said something to this effect on social media, that their outlook is to either integrate into existing systems that are already efficient, or to leverage Ripple's technology to better those systems, or replacing ones that are old and need replacement in the first place. So a lot of these antagonistic, replace them now, kill the existing system, take them over, etc., are coming from usually social media, the armchair analysts, and YouTubers, etc. In real life, these guys are in a boardroom talking to each other, trying to make deals, trying to bridge the differences, trying to upgrade their systems, trying to work together, etc. Obviously, there are regulatory issues that they have to deal with, like we can see here, and they find ways around them. As long as we keep our eyes open, understand that the underlying token behind all of this stuff is eventually XRP, right? And my job as a retail person who just is an enthusiast is to accumulate dollar cost average and hope for the best. Not financial advice, your own research. Peace.